Hi, thank you for joining me on my program, on my webinar, Building Your Influence, How to Get Ahead in 2018. And what we're going to do across the next 50 minutes or so is really revisit the content I recently shared on a webinar. Had some dramas with the sound on that, so I wanted to re-record so we had everything we need in real clarity. And my intention, my wish for anyone on this call, viewing this content, is to get a better sense of what it is that you need to do to become an influencer, and I'll explain what that's about and really why that's important, how we can actually use that to get ahead in 2018. So thanks for joining me. Make yourself comfortable, and across the next 50 minutes we'll explore those things. My name's Mark Hodgson. That's me on the left-hand side there. This is from a family trip to Nashville in the US last year, next to my beautiful wife, my son Felix. On the right-hand side is my daughter Isabel, and how good am I? I even got a picture of my mother-in-law in there. I live on the northern beaches in beautiful Sydney, and I, as well as doing the work piece that I'm going to speak to let you know about in a second, it's very important, I think, to keep healthy in body and mind. As part of that, I row a surf boat, and as you can see there, seem to be doing a better job at the moment of swimming rather than rowing, but that's an important part of my world for a whole load of reasons. We do actually sometimes keep the boat upright, and we actually won some medals last year, which is exciting. And now you've actually seen me in my budgie smugglers. I guess it's time we can get a little bit intimate and actually get into the reality of what it is we need to do, what you need to do, potentially how I can help you to unleash the best possible version of you in your work and also in your personal life, because I think that's really what being an influencer is about. A little bit of my backstory. I come from a corporate leadership background. I'm English originally, but you can probably detect from the accent. I worked for about 20 years in the UK in London. My background is in advertising and media sales. I took that to Budapest. I've also worked in Moscow. And over those times, I already built a lot of experience around corporate leadership. We came to Sydney. I've done some entrepreneurial pieces as well. But really, I became more and more engaged with what it is to lead and build teams, and also to lead transformation. My last role, I led a business transformation within a large not-for-profit in Australia. We turned $1 million loss into a $4 million profit across 3 years. And in that time, I really came in love with the idea of building teams, bringing out the greatness in others. I did a change management degree. And also for the first time, I actually had a really good mentor, and I'll speak about that as we go through as well, the importance of having other people to guide us through these things. So now, I do wear clothes as well. I'm an expert in transformation, in thought leadership, and in leadership and strategy. When I left my role in 2010, in fact, I was actually made redundant from that role. That was how we did such a good job that the business made us redundant. So I decided to set up my own consultancy. And since 2010, I've been helping executives, coaches and consultants to build confidence, gain clarity in their message, and position themselves as influential thought leaders who people want to do business with. And I do that work at the moment. I'm a mentor. I mentor around 25 people a year, from corporate executives through to individual information experts, consultants, coaches, people like that. I'm a keynote speaker, and I'm an author, and I've written a book called Time to Shine, and also author a weekly blog called Pinch of Thought, which many of you on this call would be familiar with. Outside of that, I'm also part of the community and contributing back, and I think that's an important part of what we need to do actually to retain resilience and balance as we go on this journey, which I'll speak about. And so I volunteer for Lifeline. I'm a telephone crisis support worker there, and not only obviously is that a contribution piece for me, but I actually learn an awful lot there as well, so that's important. I have a team which I'll tell you about now, and a big part of what we need to do as we build our influence is actually to build a team of people who can support us. And I'll also talk about this idea of the gig economy. So I have a team of people around me. I've got Francesca, who's based here in Sydney, who's my marketing and business manager. I've got Catherine in the UK, who's also a business manager, and also got Simon Jordan, who actually lives in the north of Wales. He's a design guru, marketing expert, and between us, we put together a lot of the thinking. And what's important to say about this, however, is that every one of these guys works themselves. So I work with these guys from between a few hours a week to maybe half a day a week, and that's what modern technology and the gig economy enables us to do. So from a small team like that, we're able to create and produce fantastic content and get an awful lot done. And I think that really is a big part of what being influencer is about, and we'll talk about that as we go through. Okay, so what are we actually going to cover across the next 50 minutes or so? Well, the first thing we'll talk about is what's really going on. What's this whole influence thing about? Why is it important, and why is it important? I think for you, in fact, for everyone, whether you work for a large organisation or whether you work for yourself, I think you need to get into the influencer game. Some introductions. So I'll talk about some of the people who I know dialed into the original call, and give you a sense of the range of people I think need to be moving through this kind of content, because as I say, this stuff used to be, I think, primarily seen as a nice to do, especially in organisational leaders and high potentials and managers thought, I can do that if I'm interested, but I don't think it's an essential. I think that's now not the case. I think it is now essential, so that's going to be important to understand that. And I'll talk about why we all need to become influencers. One of the key things I will hopefully help you with is around confidence and self-belief, and give you some tools and some approaches to understand why you are good enough to stand up, to step out, and to put your thinking and your energy and your personality out there into the world. You are good enough, because I know probably the single most common objection and I guess where people walk away from this stuff is they don't think they're good enough. And I see it very common, and that's nothing to do with ability or IQ. As I say, I work with 25 people a year, all very smart people. I can only work with clever people doing what I do. And that lack of self-belief and lack of self-confidence is very present, irrespective of IQ or accomplishment or position or salary or anything like that. We'll also look then and get into some nitty gritty, because I say the real point for today, and you can come back to this content time and again, and there is a lot of content, and I don't apologize for that, because I really want to give you something that you can maybe take away and work through in your own time and actually put together a bit of a plan. So I'm going to run through a strategic blueprint to build your influence. And then finally, we'll talk about the 7 key principles I think that are important to getting you started. So that's what we're going to do. Before we jump in, I just wanted to also give you another frame that I find useful. I talk about having this idea of 2 hats and 3 brains. Now you might think, well, that's a bit strange. If I've got 2 hats, I've got 3 brains. I need 3 hats. But let me explain. The 2 hats piece is that wherever you are as you listen to me or see this today, whether you work for an organisation or you work for yourself, chances are that will change. And I think one of the most important pieces of becoming an influencer are that it's not just, it's kind of portable. It's beyond one particular role or one particular season. Essentially, you build your influence and it becomes a portable thing that you take around and you build over your professional life. So if you work for yourself at the moment, there's chances are you might end up working in an organisation again. And also, if you're working in an organisation, chances are that you might also work for yourself at some point. And we've all heard that statistic that going forward we're likely to have another 5 or 10 or 15 careers rather than just 1 or 2 organisations that we work for, which was the traditional way. So it's really important to kind of build something that's portable around us. That we can that gives us potential and also the ability to succeed irrespective of what's going on around us. So that's the 2 hats piece. The 3 brains idea is that we now know through neuroscience we have more than one brain. We've got our head brain for sure, which is our traditional brain where we think. We've also got our gut brain, and we now know we've got something like 100 million neurons in our gut. And things like our intuition, that's where that kind of lives, and there's a whole load of research now. So when and we've all had this idea of I've got a feeling or a gut feeling or intuition, whether to do something or not to do something, and we now know that's a pretty real thing. So the gut brain is important. So that's what we kind of know. And then our heart brain, if you like, and that's what we feel, because we feel first. We now know through neuroscience that we can only react emotionally first. So we are emotional before we are rational. So it's important as we go through this that I'm going to ask you to listen with those three brains, or observe with those three brains. So your head brain, which is about what you're thinking. So as some of the things I'm talking about, okay, what's Mark talking about? Yeah, does that make sense? Does that apply to me? Is that interesting? Do I agree with that? Do I disagree with that? That's your thinking. That's fine. That's your thinking brain. You've got your gut brain. Now that's the knowing brain. And the knowing brain might be saying, you know what? It's time. It's time for me actually to do something with this kind of thinking that Mark's talking about. I've seen some of these ideas before. I know I want to do this, and I've kind of put it off. I've procrastinated, and maybe in your gut's actually saying, you know what? Come on, I need to step up. I now know that I can do this. I need to overcome a fear or some other kind of barrier. So that's that knowing piece in your gut brain, and then finally your heart brain. What are you feeling? How does this make you feel? Does it make you feel excited? Does it make you feel anxious? So listen to all three of those things. I'm not saying listen to one over all of them, give priority to any one of them, but do be open to all three as you go through this. Because the whole point of you investing 50 minutes of your time now is that we get something, that we create a shift in your world and in your life and in your career. If we don't do that, then kind of I've failed, or you've failed. We failed together. We really want to create a shift, that we want to make this mean something. Because what I'd hate to happen is that we sit on the same webinar or the same recording in 12 months' time, and you actually sort of think, well, nothing's really changed, nothing's really happened. This is an opportunity to actually think, feel, and know about this kind of thing and make some decisions. And at the end of this, I will invite you, what decisions are you making based on some of the thinking and ideas that I'm putting out there? So that's the frame, 2 hats and 3 brains, and I hope you find that helpful. So what's really going on? Now, I'm not sure if you heard of this term. I find it a very useful framework to use, and it's this idea of a VUCA world. We now live in a VUCA world, which is an acronym, and it stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I can be pretty sure that whatever circumstance or market or situation you're listening, or you're living in as you listen to this, whether you work in a large bank, whether you work for yourself, whether you work for a not-for-profit, or whether you work for government, chances are in your world, in your market, there's unparalleled levels of volatility. There's just not certainty. We used to just move into the future by extending the past. We had that last year plus a bit style thinking. Everything's much more complex than it used to be. And possibly one of the hardest things, everything seems to be ambiguous. How do we move forward when we don't necessarily know exactly where we're starting from and where we're trying to get to? I guess our instinct, our survival instinct, our fight or flight instinct in our brain is to make ourselves small and try and be safe. But the reality is we actually need to go in the opposite way. We actually need to lean into the discomfort, if you like. Run towards the fire, if you will. And so we'll talk about some ideas around that. But the VUCA world is kind of where we are. So VUCA demands different things of us. So I think, I talked about the fact I do a lot of work in transformation for individuals and also organisations. And I think we are at a pivotal time. The world has changed in a significant way, and we need to change. Not in a sense of continuous improvement or a small change. We need to make big changes to respond, to react, to set ourselves up to be successful, holistically successful in our work and in our personal lives as well. So VUCA demands different things of us. We no longer know the rules. That kind of what got us here ain't going to get us there. We do need to rethink. And for many people, this is really scary. And it's easy for people to feel isolated, inadequate, and as I said, threatened. That's a natural instinct. But VUCA also presents great opportunity. And I'd love to think that if you've taken the time to listen to me today, chances are you're actually seeking opportunity and seeking to do something else, seeking to create security and excitement and interest and creativity and success in all its forms for yourself. So there's a great opportunity. So we do need to adjust, and I think we need to adjust in a transformational sense. It's not a small shift, it is a big shift. My belief is that we actually need to become influencers. And that's about stepping out and really putting our best foot forward and saying, here I am in all my glory. This is what I can do. This is the energy I bring. These are the ideas I have. These are the problems I think I can solve. And that's kind of what we're going to talk to today. So who's here? So when we actually did the webinar, we had a lot of intelligence about who was registered, and we had about 90 people registered for our webinar, which was fantastic. And they came from every walk, every kind of scale of organisation. We had people from 3 of the large banks, from Google, from universities, and we also had people from smaller businesses and a lot of people who work for themselves. And here's my point. I think even a few years ago, this was seen as a nice to do. This is now an imperative. Whether you work for yourself or whether you're leading a small team, or you're looking to get ahead as a manager, mastering this idea of becoming an influencer, which really starts with self-leadership. That self-leadership to actually express ourselves in the best possible way, to become fully expressed in our work, to gain success and to influence others. That's kind of the game we're playing. So we're all same but different. So this is, we've got people here, managers ready to step up. We've got consultants wanting to grow sales. As I said, we've got high potential young talent looking for the next step. And executives maybe looking to reinvent themselves who are stuck in a rut or maybe have been made redundant. And I work with a lot of people like that, because there's a whole lot of reinvention. This is particularly difficult, I think, particularly challenging this piece for people. I mean, I'm 52. I know, shocking. If you've seen the pictures, gee, I thought that guy was 35. I'm 52. I work with a lot of people of my kind of vintage, and they've really got to reinvent themselves because the old rules, the old order, if you like, that they grew up into, and I grew up in as well. Work hard, go to university, get a degree, join a big company, work your way up, time served, get promoted, etc., etc. Those rules don't exist anymore. We're in a new world now, where it's much more about delivery, what you can do. We respect what people can do, what they can bring to the table, much more than their sort of time in and tenure. So everything's changed, and we just need to change in response to that. What's useful? We also asked people to let us know what particular areas they were looking for help with, and I'll just open up here. So we had things from diverse as time management, communicating ideas, focus and direction, and strategy. And you'll see when we go into the diagnostic, which I'm going to unpack in a little bit of time, all of these things will be covered. Believing in myself, as you say, Belinda, Sarah, Robert, and a whole load of other people. This is, as I say, one of the fundamental things, self-belief and confidence, and I'll talk about that. Getting myself on the radar, putting my head up, standing out, engaging customers, motivating and leading others in tough and changeable times. That was from Michael. Finding customers. I mean, this is important to understand that the influencer piece is very commercially focused. When you do this, you stand much more chance of getting that next promotion, winning the next project, standing out internally. And also, if you're a consultant, you stand more chance of winning new business, or also positioning yourself to charge more for what you do. To stand out in a sea of same. When you position yourself as an influencer and you're creating great content and getting your ideas out, and it looks fantastic. You feel and look and come across and connect with at a more premium level, and you can charge more and make more money. Working in isolation. This is interesting. The isolation piece. There's a lot of people now working from home offices, and that can feel quite isolating. But also, within organisations, you get a lot of people who work from home a lot of the time. And also, if you go into modern, I've been to a couple of places in Barangaroo recently in Sydney, where not everyone has a desk, so people come in and they plug in, and it's kind of there's very sort of transitory feeling. People come and they go and they plug in, and you can go to one of those cafes, and the cafe can look like a workplace, and the workplace can look like a cafe. So this idea that we're kind of we're all kind of little entrepreneurs, I think is a valuable one to take, because really as influencers we need to have a really entrepreneurial mindset. And whether you're an infopreneur, someone who works for yourself selling your ideas as a consultant, or an employeepreneur, so someone who works for an organisation, but you need to think in exactly the same way. And this isolation piece can be pressing in both, or be relevant in both those situations. We're looking at implementation, how to win work when budgets are tightening, we need to stand out. Rebotting, that's a typo. They're rebooting career after maternity leave. I recently wrote a blog about that. Really important. How do we restart? How do we reposition ourselves? We've still got a hell of a lot to offer, because there is probably an innate degree of resistance and sexism, which I don't particularly want to go into, but around that, and that's really important. And again, influence is a really good strategy to accelerate that kind of return to get you back to the level you should be at. And then the final one is, how do we commercialize our passion? So that's kind of what we're doing. And so let's make the case then why we all need to become influencers. I believe, and my experience is, that businesses are searching for people who can lead and inspire us, who can join the dots, people who can make sense of the uncertainty. I talked about this VUCA age and the ambiguity. A lot of people are feeling lost. They're feeling threatened. Organisationally, they don't really know where to go, what the strategy should be, what the direction should be. They're looking for those who can stand up and step out and make sense of that. We're looking for people who can create solutions to pressing problems. Communication is absolutely key, and mastering communication is super important. We need to do that. We need to be elegant communicators, and we need to master brevity. No one's got time to read your 30-page report. You've got to be succinct and engaging in the way you connect. We're looking for people who can attract other people, attract talent, attract resources, and attract the things we need to do to get projects completed. The mindset, I believe, is just as important as the IQ horsepower. So we need to, as influencers, bring a can-do mindset, and there's kind of that sense of personal energy. We need to be the people who come in and energize a room, not the people who come in and kind of sap the energy or nothing happens. When you come into a room, what happens? What's the effect? Think about that. What's the impact when you walk into a room? Now, I'm not saying we should all be doing handstands and going, yeah, hey, I'm fabulous. It's not that, but there should be with you. You need to bring your natural energy and every possible best aspect of yourself to make sure that you're energizing a room, because people are looking for leadership in the energetic sense. And I think we also need to come from abundance. We need to come from that sense of positivity, that there are resources and success and money for us all where we seek it, and we just got to go and find it, rather than, oh, well, the market's terrible and how do we succeed when there's not much money about and everyone's getting laid off and it's all going to be terrible. There are lots of challenges in the new world of work and the fourth industrial revolution and artificial intelligence. All of that stuff is very threatening to us. But by the same token, I think we need to be on the positive side of the ledger as influencers. We need to come from abundance. In terms of a model that might help you, here's a little schematic it's a model that I've developed, and it really kind of measures places where I think influencers need to exist and need to excel. And the simple question we ask is, are you playing in the right space? So this model, across the horizontal axis, we basically have the slow to fast, but also we have the past to the future and manage to lead. So there's a few things on that axis, so from left to right. The vertical axis really goes from big picture thinking down to detail. And what I reckon is, if you're in the bottom left-hand quadrant, which is kind of, slow and detail orientated, and you're looking at data and analysis and risk management and pattern recognition and continuous improvement, those kind of things, if that's where you're spending most of the time, chances are you are just about to be replaced by a computer, because those are exactly the kind of tasks that computers and artificial intelligence are well placed to deliver. At a bigger picture level, we are custodians. So these are the people, and if we've got wisdom, we need to manage the status quo. We need subject matter experts. Please don't mishear me. I'm not saying throw everything out of the water and everything's about the future and what if, but I am saying that, it's important that we have a conservative and a risk management and a focus on getting stuff out the door today that keeps the business running. That's fantastic. If you like, that's the custodian role. That's great. But I reckon if you're in any kind of managerial or leadership role, you need to be moving towards the right-hand side of this this model. And really, so if we now move towards the future and big picture thinking, this is really the place of influencers. So we're future focused. In a VUCA world, we have to be future focused, and we need to be asking questions. What if? That's a creative question, also a challenging question. We need to be challenging the status quo. So we move from experts to thought leaders. We move from the conservative to become more rebellious and challenging. We move from now, and our focus is on next. We also need, though, to be activators, or as well. So the whole influencer piece is It's about the thinking, but also it's about the getting shit done piece, which is the activation, and that's about making decisions. So from data to decision, from analysis to engagement, that's engaging other people, engaging people and resources around a project, from risk management to risk taking, We need to be disruptive, and we need to get comfortable with this idea of failing forward. So for me, the people who are in demand, the people who are going to lead us, whether it's in an organization or externally as a consultant, it's in this space. And the influencers are the people who are going to show us where are we going and how are we going to get there. That's the space. That's a leadership space. And that starts, as I say, with self-leadership. We've got to lead ourselves to get into this space, because this is kind of the brave new world. This is the cutting edge. Gravity and a habit will pull you back to the left-hand side of the graph. Processes and systems in your organization will probably pull you back to the left-hand side of the model. So you've got to kind of aspire and take the steps and actions, which I'll talk about, to move us towards the right-hand side. So just summarising that, I reckon that's the sweet spot for us. We need to be on in the right hand side, future focused. It's about leadership, not management. It's about speed. Agility and speed are very much what we need to survive and thrive in a VUCA world. And we need to not just have those ideas which I spoke about. We also need to activate them. I think if we can combine those elements as future leaders, that's what influence looks like. Okay, some building blocks. The first building block is that you are good enough. As I said, or lack of self-confidence is such a big gap, I know, in this area. So you are good enough. Let me explain. It all starts with confidence. And as I've worked with a lot of very smart people, and their confidence and their self-esteem can be quite low when we start to get into this space. So it starts with confidence. Let me give you a big idea. And this is one of my kind of key pieces of thinking that I think is really seminal to actually understanding not the piece I've just explained about why we need to become influencers and why you would do it, but this is more about how do you personally, you listening, what is it that you need to bring to this? And I think that in the age of robots, big data and artificial intelligence, our humanity is actually our point of difference. There's a beautiful TED talk by Dr. Brené Brown that many of you will be familiar with, and she says at the beginning of that connectivity is why we're here. Connection is why we're here. It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives. So for all the whiz-bangery and the clever tech and the artificial intelligence and robots are coming to take our jobs and fourth industrial revolution and the new world, all of those things which are threatening and can make us feel insignificant, the reality is we're still human beings and we still love to connect. We are sentient beings. And I think a lot of the power of a contemporary influencer isn't just in the thinking piece, which I'll talk about in a second, but in the connecting and the being piece. And I think if you can expand and explore your own humanity and bring that into your leadership and your influencing, you'll be in a very strong place. So let me give you some insight into this. So how do we get to this? Because most of us, the kind of traditional way is that we lead with our expertise and our experience. So the expertise is about what I know, my experience is about where I've been. And when we bring those two things into connection, we establish ourselves as credible subject matter experts. And that's really cool. The only downside of that is that the world is full of credible experts. And increasingly with the global economy and technology, we can access, people from all over the world can access our markets, and as it's no secret that Australia is one of the most expensive markets, and we are expensive people. So if we're just trading on our expertise and experience and our credibility, then we're missing a trick. So if your LinkedIn profile, or your company profile, your resume, or CV just sort of talks about your expertise and experience, which it probably does, it establishes as credible. That means so what? It doesn't make you stand out. The third thing we need to bring out is the essence, and that's who I be. And when we bring it, if you like, our personality, our enthusiasm, our passion, that personal energy, that kind of whiz, the fizz, then two things happen. Firstly, we become much more convicted, and second, we become much more authentic. So we're credible, convicted, and authentic. And I believe that the world is actually looking for these people much more than it is looking for people who are just going to kind of plead and try and sell to us. We don't like being sold to anymore. We're looking for people who come from belief and have strongly held beliefs, and we're looking for authentic people. I think one of the big problems we all have with leaders of pretty much any political persuasion at a global level, certainly at an Australian level, is we look, where are these people? Where are the convicted, authentic, and credible leaders? Answers on a postcard, I'm not sure we know where they are. And that's the people we're looking for. And in your context, in your marketplace, in your organisation, in your area of expertise, this is what we need to be. I'd go one level deeper on that to help you find a way into this. I talked about the expertise, and really that's about intelligence, and that's about our head brain. You remember I mentioned at the beginning, that's our head brain. So that's things like education, knowledge, theory, and instinct. And that's all great stuff, but I think the reality is we've come probably to over-rely on information, intelligence, and data, if you like. We put too much import on it. Because the reality is, I mean, most of us are overwhelmed with information. We're not sitting there, I need more facts, or I need more information. Most of the time, we've got tons of information, and the challenge is actually to work our way through the overwhelm of it. So yes, it's important, but I don't think it's as important as it used to be. Our experience about where we've been, and really what we need to do is turn that experience into wisdom. And that's about things like application, pragmatism, perspective, adaptation, using our intuition, which I've spoken about, and really creating a bit of a worldview. So when we start to bring our wisdom based on experience into play, that's when we start to get, a lot of extra capability. I think we add extra value as influencers when we come from wisdom, not just experience. And we have to actually interrogate our experience to turn it into wisdom, is my point. Experience doesn't naturally become wisdom, or doesn't automatically become wisdom. I think we need to examine it. Examine our experience. What did I learn? What were the patterns I saw? What could we do differently? When we start to do that, then we create wisdom. That wisdom is really valuable. Then the last area, and probably the most important area, and I think this is the piece that certainly in a corporate context, most of us leave at the door. We've been trained to put on that sort of corporate voice, and we get that beige corporate speak. We don't actually say what we think. We wrap it in some kind of politically correct and organisationally acceptable language. But this is the piece we need to actually amp up, not amp down. And that's our essence is actually about our humanity, and that's, as I said, it's about our heart brain. So that's about things like feelings, hopes, beliefs, desires, ethics, values. But it's also about negative things like fears and weaknesses and biases and traits, because the reality is we've all got those. I think the more we can, as leaders, the more with leaders we can bring things like empathy into play and and create that true connection that Brené Brown spoke about, then the better able we are actually to create communication and connection. Once we've got that connection, then we actually start to move things. Whether that's selling things or getting a team to do something amazing, or creating a new product. It's really, we all know the reality is we need to engage people. And once we engage people and really connect with them at a human level, then we can supercharge their experience and bring their expertise in as well. Bang, that's when we get extraordinary things done. So that's why I think the humanity piece and the heart piece is particularly important. Okay, so what we're going to do in the second part of the webinar is actually look at some of the building blocks. So I've given you really, what I've done there is I've painted context for you. I've created a big picture. Why is this important? Why is this important? What does influencing actually look like? And now we're actually going to turn our attention to a building. So how do you actually dial up your influence? How does it go from being, I wrote in a recent blog, I got this kind of dial thing going on, and it starts from being asleep where you're doing nothing. And I want you to, I'm thinking most people on this call are a bit agitated. They're kind of, I want to start doing this, but I'm not really sure how. I want you moving from agitated to active. And finally, I actually want to get you to be absolutely amplified. I want you to be doing this stuff. I want you to be creating content. I want you to be publishing your points of view, bringing people together, bringing customers together, speaking out at market events, going into a team meeting and being awesome. And the reality, and ultimately, you could even move. You can move to the awesome column. But I really want to get you moving. And so, how are we going to do that? So what I'm going to do is walk you through a strategic plan, if you like, to build your influence for 2018. So in terms of how you use this, and we'll actually send you out a copy of this with the webinar. You actually this is where you do your planning and kind of work out where you are and what you need to work on. So there's quite a lot of detail here because these are the 9 things you need to cover. In our first column are the things we need to do. So we need to create, we need to engage, and we need to exercise. That's the stuff we need to be doing, and we need to do it well, and we need to do it consistently. Just as importantly, there's things we need to be, and that's about mindset and attitude. So mindset and attitude is every bit as important as your IQ or your ability to create cool stuff. The being piece is very important. So we need to be productive, we need to be strategic, and we need to be accountable. And then over time, we need to, in the last column, we need to build things. We need to build resilience, we need to build support, and we need to build community. And what I'm going to do now is jump through each one of those in a bit more detail. So take a time, get yourself a pencil or a pen, and just scroll as we go. And obviously, one of the beauties of being a recorded webinar, you can stop and start and rewind me so you don't miss a thing. And as you can imagine, we could do a deep webinar each one of these things. So I'm just giving you an overview as a kind of like a blueprint, a strategic blueprint for you to think about as you plan what your 2018 looks like. So let's jump in. So the first one is create. We need to create content that distinguishes. And for me, actually, the biggest barrier to this is that we don't give ourselves permission to think. And I think that's one of the key things. We actually need to actually give ourselves permission to think, because we've stopped doing it. So give yourself permission to have ideas. Then you've got to get things into your brain. So read. Not enough people read enough stuff. Not just Facebook crap. Read journals. Read the Harvard Business Review. Find a few things to read. Read a newspaper, a good newspaper. Read what's going on in the world. Read outside your own pond. Listen. Listen to podcasts. And most importantly, observe. When you're going around the world, look up. Connect things. See what's going on. And then once we've done that, we actually, we need to turn that into something. So yes, we need to create things. We need to write articles. We need to write blogs. We need to publish stuff into LinkedIn. We need to do presentations and white papers and a whole lot of cool stuff. But we also need to comment. And LinkedIn, and so the way I talk about this, it's not all about social media. This isn't, being an influencer is not just something that exists online. I want you showing up, fully self-expressed. In a meeting in the flesh. That's even more powerful. So it's both of those things. But we also, but a lot of this does start online, and the simplest place to start is online in places like LinkedIn. So create stuff, write an article. What does your LinkedIn profile look like? If it's just got a picture of you, which even that might not be that great, and some boring, expertise and experience type things, which is probably what it looks like, then we need to do more with that. So let's get some pieces in there, some thought pieces, some articles in there. Comment on other people's things, and then also curate, which is about bringing relevant pieces together in a short, timely way, and maybe send it out to clients or your team. Hey, you might want to look at this. This is really interesting. This makes the point I made, or hey, I think this is wrong, but this is right. Get into the habit, and that's really just thinking and scanning. Look for patterns and connect existing ideas in new ways. I think one of the biggest things that people feel inadequate in this sense is that I know stuff, but lots of other people know the stuff I know. I'm not unique. I'm not very creative. But creativity also exists in looking for patterns as much as it does in bringing out entirely new things. So it's often about connecting things that already exist. So you might say, well, this is going on in this marketplace, and hey, this is something else is going on in another marketplace in the world. Or look what they're doing here. Well, how do we do that? Or why is that different? Why do they do that here and we don't do it here? There's things like that. And you can just ask questions. Then your intelligent mind can actually, well, maybe we could do this or maybe we could do that. That's what ideation looks like. It doesn't just mean moments of genius. Throw some rocks. It's really important in this space that you're not just parroting the status quo and sort of amplifying groupthink. The role of an influencer is to challenge. So, if everyone's saying, red, you need to say blue. Not in terms of being sensational or being, rude, but the reality, almost for certain, there'll be things in your marketplace that need challenging, and most people just don't challenge them. And I think we need to be a bit courageous and say, you know what, everyone's saying this, and that's good as far as this and this, but I think that. So have the courage to throw some rocks. And finally, in terms of giving yourself permission to think, help yourself out by capturing ideas as you see them. So I use Evernote, which is an app that sits on my phone. So I'm often out and about. I take pictures of things. I take pictures of newspaper because I'm old school. I still read a newspaper because I actually like the difference in getting off a screen. Or OneNote, or there's any number of other things, but actually get in the habit of capturing things, just tag them, and then when you're ready, you've got a whole little library of stuff you can bring into your creativity and your content creation. And then finally, just press send. One of the biggest things we do, especially when we're starting out, is what will people say? What will they think of me? Who am I to do this? Just press send, because most people won't care, and the people who matter won't mind. The people who matter, and we'll talk about you building your tribe later on, the people who you're looking to influence, potential market, people in the market, customers, staff, peers, reports. They'll admire you for doing it. So just pretend no one's reading and just press send. So that's create. Now the next one is engage. So this is the second thing we need to do. We need to engage actively with prospects. We need to sell to them. We need to sell ourselves, sell our ideas, and basically sell that we're worthy of giving time to, because everyone's overwhelmed and overworked. So we need to earn the right to be heard. Setting context is really important. What I observe in a lot of my leadership work with organisations, people rush into detail. They don't set the context. What's really going on? Why is this important? And you'll notice at the beginning of this webinar, I spent probably 10 minutes setting the context. What's really going on about the world, VUCA, changing, influence? Why I think influence is one of the answers to a VUCA world. So we've got to set the context. Why is this important? Don't just dive into detail. We've got to be addressing primary problems, and everyone's too busy to give you the time to talk about their sort of 12th level problem. Really you got to find out where the pain is and lean into it. Address primary problems and how you help, and whether that's re-energizing a broken team or a stuck team, or with a specific consultancy project or offering that you do that fixes a specific problem. Be really clear about what the problem is, name the problem, express the problem, probably better than the client or the person who has the problem maybe is able to express it themselves. Express the problem and then let them know how you help. You need to master this idea, and I use the word of simplicity, which is about making the complex accessible. Now that's not dumbing it down. It's smartening it down. So how do we communicate things in an elegant and simple way, but still retain the nuance and complexity of it? And that's simplicity. So that's another thing to think about. I love this idea, and I always give this advice that we need to think twice. We default to things like sending emails or using PowerPoint presentations, or we need to think twice. What is it we're trying to say, and who are we trying to say it to, and what's the best way that's going to be that's going to be connected. It might be via voice, it might be intentionally via a meeting, it might be via a walking meeting. I had a lovely invitation yesterday. I'm meeting with someone from one of the bank customers I'm working with, and she said, "Hey, let's meet. Are you okay with a walking meeting?" So that's great, because we're going to meet. We're going to go for a walk, and that's intentional because that's good to get out, get our brains working, and we're going to converse and do business on a walk, which obviously is important to her, and I can see the relevance of it. So I'm absolutely super happy to suggest that we do it on a walking meeting. Be energetic and elegant. There's so much. Oh, it's all shit. This is too hard. It'll never work. I'm just waiting to be redundant. Bring that energy and elegance to everything you do, because that's so important. Effectively, we've got to make ourselves attractive to people. We've got to be seen as the solution and not part of the problem. And finally, don't be boring. No one's got time for boring. We must have, if it's boring you, chances are it's boring everyone else, and it's not going to work. You were not going to be successful in influencing and getting stuff done that you want done, or decisions made that you want, or people to do what you think will be helpful. Don't be boring. And then the third of the things we need to do is execute, and we need to be flawless and impressive. I spoke at the beginning about my team, so particularly, I work with guys across the continent. So I got Francesca is local to me, but Catherine lives in London, and Simon lives in the north of Wales. And we connect several times a day, often, certainly several times a week, via technology, via Skype, and using a whole lot of technology, we're able to create what I think is pretty good quality, or even very good quality, thinking and collateral. Using this kind of gig economy. So I built a collection of trusted experts around me who help me to do what I do. And you've got to master this. You cannot put up crap presentations or crap collateral or crap resources. It just in a world where this is possible to be done quickly, it makes you look like an amateur, and it does nothing for your influence. It sort of marks you down. Few do this well, so I think it's actually a massive opportunity to master this stuff, and just look out for those people who can help you really shine and be the best possible, show up the best possible way in all formats. And that's about being impressive from client first contact through to project delivery, because the reality is, as I said, with the team I've got that I've described to you, I can pitch up there with probably pretty much anyone else in terms of quality, in terms of thinking, in terms of design, and I guess delivery and resource execution. And that's not about spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It's about working out, who can do this for me and how we do it using templates, using technology. So it really can be done. And again, it's very easy to not do this well, and we get marked down for it. So it's a good trick to master. And even at a very low level, invest in design. So there's some very low cost things like Fiverr and Canva.com, which can help you get that visual design looking really good. If it looks like a school project, if it looks like clip art, if it looks like you've just grabbed images off the internet, it shows. And it really just marks you down as someone who's not playing at the best level. And with a very little bit of extra work and very little extra expense, you can really make your stuff sing. And it's amazing what a big difference it makes in terms of the impression you create. And effectively, no excuses. As I've said, leverage the gig economy. There's a whole lot of perhaps challenging things around the gig economy and the way it drives down costs, and no one can make a living and all that stuff. We can talk about that another time. But the flip side of that is the gig economy is there to be leveraged for our benefit as well. So find some gun people. So I had, for example, the guy who typeset my book did an amazing job, $60 on Fiverr, and then Simon designed the cover of my book. I think that probably cost $400 or $500. But getting great cover design is probably more important than what's in the book. These are the small things that make such a big difference. So that's the last of the things that we need to do. Okay, pause for breath. Think about that. And now we're going to move on to the next section, which is what do we need to be? And what the first thing we need to be is productive. As I said, I think a useful kind of descriptor to get to for you, especially if you work for someone else. So if you're an employee and you get a salary, you still need to think like a startup. So employeepreneur, think of yourself as an internal entrepreneur, because that's the pace and mindset and attitude I think you really need to thrive and get ahead and kind of stay ahead of this curve. So think like a startup wherever you are and whatever level you're at. Even if you're a senior organizational level, say, okay, if I was starting again, it was a startup, what would I do? What processes would I get rid of? How would I free up time to do more of this important stuff, more of this influential piece, and get rid of less management pieces, for example? Guard your time ruthlessly. You've got to obsess on outputs. And a lot of that is about just being really intentional about where you spend your time. Don't waste time. And just really clear. If you're having meetings, why are you meeting with someone? What's it about? If it's just for coffee, inverted commas, then you've got to be more specific. What's that about? How's this going to advance stuff? And this isn't about being egotistical. It just means when you do this well, you also get to go home on time, which, as I talk about later on, is really important. I don't want to portray this whole race to become an influencer as you sort of working 70 hours a week and becoming a superman or a superwoman. It's not about that. We need to retain balance. In fact, ideally, we need to shorten our days so that we're operating at from the best part of our brain. So we need to be really ruthless about the way we actually guard our time. We need to get across the tech that helps us and that multiplies us and accelerates us. So things like templates, simple CRM, as I talked about, Evernote and MailChimp, those kind of things are really important. To make sure you just do stuff once and then scale it rather than having to laboriously go through stuff time and time again. And by the same token, don't overinvest your time. Find someone who's good at it, and you're probably better off. I always think, for me, I'm better off spending my time doing what I do best. Delivering, talking at a high level. Selling what I do. Selling strategy and earning the money I earn, than trying to learn how to use a piece of software that I'm not particularly good with. I'd rather pay someone to use that. I'd rather pay someone $50 an hour who's a gun at that, and they'll do amazing work, and they'll leave me to do what I'm best at. So don't overinvest your time. We've got to resist becoming too much of a sort of jack of all trades. And finally, this is important from a neuroscience and biological level. We need to guard our energy. So that's about taking breaks. That's about eating well, sleeping well, and changing our environment. So I work in the city. I've got a home office. I work at clients' offices. I work in the park. I do walking meetings. I've got a fantastic deck that's covered. It's got these fantastic lounges where I do thinking and writing. I'm very intentionally, if I'm bored or I feel I'm not being productive, I shift my environment. And you can do exactly the same thing as well. That's one of the things we need to do to be productive. The next thing we need to do, the fifth thing, is we need to be strategic, and that's about sequence. I think is actually, in terms of helping you guys move to where you're trying to get to in 2018 and kind of getting started, one of the biggest areas to master is this idea of being strategic. So have a clear plan. So this is a great time to do it. We're at the end of 2017. Think about, where do I want to be in 12 months' time? And then work backwards from that and break that down into 90-day focus points. And that might be, I want to get a new promotion. I want to get my team to a certain place. I want to get such and such a project completed. Or I want to sell, $150,000 worth of business in the first quarter of next year. Whatever the thing is, be really clear about what it is. And once we've done that, then we need to think of what's the sequence. And what I see time and time again is people get out of sequence. So the sequence needs to be 1, 2, 3. So not 1, 4, 7, 2. So that means do the next obvious thing, make some money there, build some, build some relationships, for example, get stuff happening, and then do the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. The danger is that we go and reach for something that's way too big for us too early, and we kind of stall. One of the common ones is, for example, people say, I can't do that, I'm going to write a book. Everyone wants to write a book, and that's cool. But don't write a book and take 3 months and do nothing. Write a blog every week. Start off with something you can do in bite-sized chunks, and then guess what? You can actually pull a few of the blogs together and write a white paper, and then over time you can maybe take 6 months of blogs and turn that into a book, which is exactly what I've done. So my book, Time to Shine, is actually a compilation of 99 of the blogs I've written over a few years. So I never took a 3-month or 6-month period out to, inverted commas, write and find myself. I was creating content all the way through that is useful, that built my influence, that I put out to my market, helped to build my tribe. And then I pulled that together and edited it and put it into a book. So that's sequence 1, 2, 3. So sequence is really important. And really that's about fixating on profitable actions and not getting distracted. So sales, project deliverables, anything that keeps you moving forward, anything that keeps you earning what you need, whether that's money or, good reviews from a boss or stuff that's going to kind of keep fueling you and think, I'm doing the right stuff, this is good. Yeah, and I'm not saying it's all easy street, but basically take logical next steps rather than big lunging, heroic steps that can fail and then you feel deflated and then you stop. Because the key thing we've got to do through this, and by the way, this is the whole way through. This is probably an 18-month to 3-year journey. You'll see benefits after as little as 3 months. But the whole, to really do this well, and I think arrive as an influencer where you're attracting interest and money and all those good things consistently, probably takes 2 to 3 years. So that's a long way. So we've got to start somewhere and keep moving forwards. One of the key things is to avoid shiny objects. So a new project there and a new project there, a new project here and a new project there, and you've probably all sort of been familiar with that. And we need to learn to say no to things. So stay focused because we all get excited and inspired by the new project or the new idea rather than just getting that last thing done on the existing project. So avoid shiny objects. And one of the most important things is what you should be creating content. You need to be creating content at the very least every 2 weeks. I'd like to see everyone on this recording creating an article. Doesn't need to be long, 600 words, 500 words. Publish that into LinkedIn. Get a really good image and put that in there. If you are doing that, you'll be one of the 1% in your industry. I can pretty much guarantee. But we need to commit to meeting that content creation delivery plan, even when it hurts. So that's, sometimes it's easy. So over the next few weeks, it's probably going to be easy because you've got time and a bit of time over Christmas, and I'll write some blogs. That'll be great. But what do you do when it's a really busy week and it's a shitty Wednesday afternoon and you want to write something and you're really tired and all you really want to do is go home, or you need to write staff reviews or do your expenses or whatever the thing is? That's when you need to dig and say, no, this is every bit as important as any of those other things. That sort of steely discipline is just as important as being a smart bunny or being a great creative thinker. the discipline actually trumps the quality of the content, at least in the early days. So it's really important to be strategic. And then lastly, in the thing we need to be accountable. This is a hard road to do alone. I'm conscious that I might make it sound it's not too hard, and it's well worth it. And in a sense, it's the only choice, because if you're not doing this, what are you doing? You're kind of existing on hope, which I think is a pretty poor strategy. Hope's not a great strategy. Becoming an influencer is really essential. And when you do it, it's great fun. It gets easier as you go. And as I say, it's a great way to earn more money, get promotion, charge more for what you do, enjoy your role more, get home on time. There's a whole lot of very cool benefits from doing this. But it does take, as I say, some structure and some strategy and some discipline. It's hard to do alone. So make yourself accountable to peers, or partner up with fellow infopreneurs if you're a consultant, or employeepreneurs if you're doing this with an organization. Find a buddy and buddy up. So let's sort of hold each other accountable to some of these things that I'm talking about. Because the reality is you need accountability and encouragement. So it's both. It's stick and carrot. We need to encourage ourselves through the tough times, but we also need to hold ourselves accountable. Where's that piece of content? Where's that, what have you done to book yourself to speak at an industry event? Or are you organizing something to bring your team together where you can get a chance to showcase some of your thinking? Or you're going to facilitate some customers at a meeting. You're going to create an event. What are you doing to that? Well, if that needs to happen in 3 months' time, we need to plan and actually execute that. So there's an accountability piece there as well. And of course, best of all, get a mentor, and get a great mentor like me. There you go. There's my sales pitch. As I say, I work with about 25 people a year doing exactly this thing. And for sure, whether it's me or someone else, not as good, obviously, but whether it's me or someone else, working with a great mentor will definitely accelerate your learning and earning as you go through this process. And I must admit, irrespective of the fact it's what I do for a living, it always amazes me that organisations will pay people hundreds of thousands of dollars, often more than that, and yet they'll balk at a relatively small investment in having a mentor to really make sure an individual can really grow and get the best out of themselves. And especially in this piece, because this is not a natural piece for most people. This is a new piece of thinking and being that we need to do. This doesn't just happen. You do not naturally evolve into an influencer. As I said at the outset, this is a conscious decision you need to make to do this and be this and step up into this. And there's a whole lot of new things you need to do, be, and create to actually play in this space. And do remember, and I say, this gets easier. As your influence grows, you'll find that you're attracting more and more inquiry. You'll get invited to events. You'll get asked to speak at events. You'll get asked to write for people, for industry papers. You'll be asked to speak within your organisation, etc., etc. The more you do this, the easier it gets, and the more it becomes self-fulfilling. So if you like, the first pieces are all about priming the pump. Once the pump is primed, it will flow, and you'll find this gets easier and easier. Now, the last thing, we're in the last column now. These are the things we need to build. So we've done the things we need to do, we've done the things we need to be, and then the last column is what do we need to build to actually round out this influencer blueprint. And the first thing we need to build is resilience. And this is really about seeing the whole game for what it is. As I said, very few people will start this game because it's daunting and they feel they're not good enough, and there's a whole lot of other reasons. But even those who do start it, most of them give up too soon. We need to understand this is a strategic investment in your future, and that's in your future success in terms of dollars and promotion and money, and that's all cool. But it's also, I believe, a strategic investment in your future happiness, because when you do this, you're creating a lot of opportunity and flexibility in terms of what's next for you. Because when you do this well, you build this external to any particular role or organisation if you're an employee. So you can do this and use it entirely appropriately when you are working for one employee. But if you go somewhere else or decide to set up on your own, you're already an influencer. You've got a pre-built sort of set of people to support you and do business with and do life with. So mentally prepare for a long game. As I said, it's anywhere between probably 12 to 36 months. You get benefits after 3 months, but see it as a longer game. This is an investment. So think of a kind of a 3-year game, and do anticipate the knockbacks, the disappointment, and the rejection that's going to happen. And for because that's inevitable. As things change, clients will say no, bosses will come and go, things will happen. They go, oh shit, I thought we were there and this has happened. And don't get too despondent when that does happen. And I think also it's important to see this is, because this is a leadership journey, very much a leadership journey as well. It's important to see this as part of our life, not our whole life. It's really, this needs to be part of what we do, not everything we do. And we need to make sure that we are creating a balance across other elements of our work, spending time still with our family and friends, looking after our fitness. So I talked about at the beginning about the surfboat rowing. The reason I do surfboat rowing is, one, because it's really good fitness. Secondly, it puts me in fellowship with 4 other guys of my kind of age, and we can talk shit, which we need to, because I spend a lot of time working in relative isolation. So it's important that I'm sociable. So that piece is really important to me, and I know it makes me better at my work as well, and with my family and my friends and so forth. And then also faith. I mean, faith could be about religion, but faith can also be about getting out in nature. So again, the other lovely thing about surfboat rowing for me is I'm touching the ocean, which is gorgeous. So we need to create part of building resilience is creating balance. The second, and remember, this is a game. It's a fairly long journey, but if I've described it and made it sound overly arduous, then I've done this and you a disservice. This is actually a really enjoyable journey. It's hard work. I mean, this is hard work, but it's good hard work. And when we do it well, and we start to get some feedback, some affirmation, people say, "That was really good. I love that article. That's a really good idea. Let's do something with that." Then it becomes easier and easier, and it should be a journey that you enjoy. The next thing we need to do is build support, and that's about spreading the load. And really that's about building a supporting network around brand you. I talk about this idea of a wealth network, and really you need to find people around you in your world who are opportunists, who inspire you, financiers, people who can advise you, people who will talk you up, people who will help you, load carriers, peers and enablers. Again, when I work with people, we dive into a whole lot of listing around that. So, even in my context, obviously, I've got Francesca and Catherine and Simon who all help me do a whole lot of things around this. But I've got other people who I work with, who advise me, who will help me in certain things, who can accelerate my learning, who can connect me with opportunities, and I do the same for others. So really, we need to build this wealth network around us, and think you really you're building the team that's going to support you, which is really important. And so what we need to do is to really understand that, populate that team, and if there are gaps, look for those people and put them on your team. And then we need to become intentional about making sure that we're having a meeting with one of these kind of people probably at least once a month. So that means we have 12 meetings a year without agenda with people in this kind of space. With those meetings you have with people, gee, that was a great meeting. I've got some new ideas and new connections and new opportunities. Those are the kind of meetings we need to make sure we're having to keep growing ourselves and also growing our network, because obviously the influencer piece is very much about building a network of people who've got our back and we can do business with, and who will support us. Conversely, we also need to identify if we've got anyone in what I call our poverty network. These are the, typo there, distractors, doomsayers, passengers and critics. Those are the people, it'll never work. Who are you to be an influencer? No one's going to read what you write. You're not good enough. You should just stick to your knitting. You should just go back to work. Why don't you go back? It's not working out. If you go back and get a job. That's that kind of script. So if you're hearing that from people, if their family just kind of, you can't sack your family, but just harden yourself mentally and recognize that kind of commentary for what it is. Often it comes from misplaced love. But also if it's from friends who maybe you've outgrown, or peers you've outgrown, don't put your hand up, mate. You just get more work. Those kind of people, then maybe it's time to make some active decisions around moving on from them. And as I said, we need to intentionally meet and nurture our wealth network and really build that support structure around us. So a bit like those tennis players, when you see an Andy Murray or a Djokovic, there's one person on the court, or Serena. There's only one person on the court. They've got a whole team of advisors and fitness trainers and psychologists around them. It's a bit like that. We need to build a team around us, even if we work on by ourselves, and actually increasingly in organisations as well. Because as I say, that employeepreneur piece is very real. And then the last piece that we need to build is our community, and that's about building our tribe as the hard work pays off, and that's the community, the marketplace, if you will, the group of people who are really gonna like what you do, support you, whether that's your team members or people in the organisation or stakeholders or other people in the marketplace. It's really important. So that could be peers, staff, customers, key market players. They get what you do and they want to engage with you. That's what all this energy is for, is to build this tribe. This is who you want to sell to. You want to collaborate with these people, and over time you will grow with them, and they will grow with you, and you will grow with them. Your tribe exists beyond a specific role or company, and that, as I said, builds future flexibility and opportunity for you. And this is where you have fun and design the work and life you want. And if that sounds too big, again, I don't think that is too big. When you do what I'm talking about, when you become an influencer and do it really well, it's a really good way to design your life so that you're financially successful in an organisation, or working for yourself, or chopping from one to the other, and also in the way you show up in your community and in your home life and your personal life. Because getting that balance in, again, this very uncertain VUCA world is so important. Okay, last lap now, and thanks for sticking with me as we've gone through. As I say, there's a lot of detail here, so as I stop and rewind me and keep going back and forth to study some of those things. And as you can imagine, there's a whole lot of depth there. So I'll leave you with 7 key principles I think we need to actually get started in this process. The first one is that we need to decide to start, because this all starts with a decision. As I say, if in 12 months' time you're looking at this webinar again and go, okay, I must do this, then we've kind of missed an opportunity, I think. This all starts with a conscious decision, and decide comes from the same root words as things like infanticide, homicide, and regicide. It means to cut or to kill off choice. So put aside that doubt. Am I good enough? Is this for me? Is this the right time? Put all that aside and make a decision to actually step up and start some of the processes that I've spoken about. The second piece is that you need to be a leader wherever you are. Influence is all about self-leadership. And in fact, I think self-leadership is actually the currency of our times. Because as formal and historical large organisations are morphing and transforming, we kind of need to be responsible and take responsibility for our own leadership and for our own future success. And influencing it's not hierarchical. Yes, obviously you can be an influencer if you're a CEO, but you can also be an influencer if you've just joined an organisation or if you live outside of an organisation. So be a leader wherever you are. And again, that comes back to giving yourself permission to lead and giving yourself permission to think and to put your thoughts out there, because that's super important. Love this picture. Take ownership. Don't procrastinate. Don't blame. No excuses. Get real about this. There is a massive opportunity out there. It is accessible. Everyone listening to this can do this for sure. But it does take discipline, it does take strategy, and it does take energy. But the rewards, as I hope I've explained, I think are pretty fantastic. But you need to take ownership. Integrate your multiple lives. When we do this well, I think it blends all parts of our life very well. One of the reasons I shared at the beginning of the presentation that I do some work for Lifeline is because it's and the rowing and my family, because that's who I am. I am now the place I can show up as my authentic self, fully expressed, and make a very good living doing so. And that makes it very easy. There's no pretense. I don't put on a face or any kind of mask. I am who I am. What you see is what you get. And there's a lot of work to get to that point where you can just turn up and be you. And I guess in a sense that's really one of the real benefits of being an influencer. So integrate your multiple lives. Look for the tension. We need to run towards the danger and the conflict and the shit, basically. We need to be brave. This isn't about groupthink and going along with the crowd and staying with the herd. We need to look for the tension. Now that's not about reckless, lunging around within an organisation and getting yourself fired for inappropriate, sort of commentary. But it is looking for the tough stuff and taking it on and resolving it and coming up with solutions or suggesting, what do we do next? What do we do next? What if? What could this look like? How can we change this situation? Because that's where the value is. Because organisations, there are a lot of them are stuck in change, for example, or even projects get stuck in the tough stuff. So look for the tension. Don't look for the easy stuff. Look for the tension. Love this quote by Seth Godin, who's a beautiful influencer in the region of in the area of marketing, and he said this: "Liberate yourself from the need to be right." I think I work with a lot of senior execs, and they really struggle at this. They're still struggling under some old concept that they need to be the smartest person in the room or have the best ideas, and it's just not true. When you liberate yourself from the need to be right and open yourself to possibility and curiosity, and bring in that beautiful idea of experimentation, and that the workplace is a laboratory, the project's a laboratory. Let's trial this, let's trial that, because that's how scientists work. They fail far more often than they succeed. But somehow or other, within organisations especially, we seem to have concocted this sense of, we need to be right, or we need to be certain. And of course, we're in a VUCA world, we can't be certain. So this is a key mindset shift to make, to actually liberate yourself, to actually do good stuff and good work. And then finally, a lovely quote from the late, great David Bowie. And he said this, he said, "If you feel safe in the area in which you are working, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you're capable of being in. Go a little bit out of your depth. When you don't feel your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the place to do something exciting." So step out. Okay, next steps, what can we do? Well, you can get in contact with me, and we'd love to send you a copy of my book, Time to Shine. Also got exciting, hot off the press news. We're building a diagnostic which will be ready in December. Really unpacking that last piece I've just done around the do, be and build matrix. And you're going to end up with your own personal report and your influence score. And so we'll be contacting you to invite you to be our guinea pigs and test that out for us. But that should be really valuable for you as well. As I said, I run mentoring programs for leaders, teams, and individuals, infopreneurs. I'm a keynote speaker. I run a lot of mentoring programs and training programs. And we would love to talk to you about the possibility of working with you if that's something that is of interest. And that's it. Thank you ever so much. I hope you've enjoyed this. We'll be in contact, and good luck in building your influence in 2018.